take this opportunity to welcome our next speaker to today's session. I welcome Dr. Denjyoti Chanda, sir, to start his talk on reporting on women's empowerment, focusing on microcredit and SHG initiative in West Bengal. And before that, let me introduce Debjyoti Chanda, sir. So, sir is currently an associate professor and head of the Department of Mass Communication and Videography, Rabindra Bharati University, Kolkata. And sir has been a member, is continuing to be a member of many boards. He's a postgraduate board. He's a member of postgraduate board of studies in journalism and mass communication in Rabindra Bharati University, the University of Kolkata, at Budhwan University, Netaji Subhash Open University, West Bengal State University, and Swami Vivekananda University. He is a member of Press Club Kolkata. He's a member of Public Relations Councils of India. He's a chairman of Department Research Committee, Higher Education Committee, and he has been guiding many PhD candidates. And he's also the member of the editorial board for the International Journal of Communication, Society and Cultural Studies, Jahangir University, Journal of Journalism and Media Studies. He's the chief editor of Parvo Khagoj, and he's a member of editorial board at Dutaipa. He was a guest editor in the summer 2018 issue, Global Media Journal, and he's a member of editorial board at Education Research and Analysis, which is an international peer-reviewed indexed multidisciplinary journal. Sir, I take this opportunity to warmly welcome you to this session. We are on the 7th day of the FDP session conducted by the Press Club of Kolkata, St. Xavier's University, Kolkata, and Unicef together. I pass on the floor to you, sir. And before you start your talk, may I request Snehashish, sir, to give a few words of introduction to you.
Thank you, Sitara ma'am. I'll not take much time. I'll just say welcome to Dr. Debjyoti Chanda, who has been a member of the Indian Information Service also. He has worked there in his early days, but he has preferred to join academics. He has been leading the Rabindra Bharati University Mass Communication and Videography Department for a long time. As a member of the Press Club Kolkata, he is always very positive, and he is in the panel writer of a very renowned journal of Indo-Bangla relations, and he is a watcher of Indo-Bangla relations also. So, Dr. Chanda, it is a pleasure to have one of the Press Club members like Dr. Uma Shankar Pandey to be associated, so that with your presence and participation, the academia and professional relationship will get stronger. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. May I request Professor Debjyoti Chanda, sir, to take over the floor, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your kind words. I'm really grateful to St. Xavier's University, Press Club Kolkata, and Unicef for giving me this opportunity to be here this evening. I was there in the inaugural session of this faculty development program, and to my surprise, what I saw was that almost the entire bunch of participants in this program are personally known to me almost as a student, as colleagues, and it is definitely a matter of great joy and satisfaction for me that this particular faculty development program is almost in its fag end, and it has been running very successfully. I've been joining now and then, peeping into certain classes now and then, and yesterday also I was there for a while. And what is problematic for me at today is that my speaker, who spoke just before me, Professor K.G. Suresh, after his very animated deliberation, I would be a bit petrified with what I am to say. The topic of my discussion today is communication, women empowerment, and a role of self-help groups. Since the time of independence, endemic and mass poverty has been one of the features of our country. We have been for a very long time referred to as a third world country. And when we discuss poverty, when we look at the characteristic and nature of poverty in our country, we will see that it is the marginal sections. Where are they located? First of all, most of the poor in our country live in the rural areas. And then when we try to find out who these marginal sections are, we will see that scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, or women continue to be amongst the most of the poor in our country. When it was in the 50s, after independence, the government of India decided to start the Planning Commission under the leadership of P.C. Mohalanobish, Prashanta Chandran Mohalanobish, a noted statistician, under the direction of the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru. The process of planning in India started. Centralized planning in India started. And it was in 1952 that the Planning Commission was set up. But if we look back a bit before independence also, we will see that there has been efforts by individuals to take up schemes and projects for development. And we see that the Sriniketan Shantiniketan project was taken up by Gurudev Rabindra Tagore in 1921. We see that the Baroda project was taken up by V.T. Krishnamachari in 1932. And Mahatma Gandhi, the father of our nation, took up the Sevagram project in 1936. Immediately after independence, in 1948, we have seen that the Etava project was taken up by Albert Mayer. And Mahatma Gandhi's very close associates and followers like Acharya Vinoba Bhave took up the Bhudan and the Gramdan projects in the 1951s and in the 1952s. What is very important to stress over here is that it was in 1952 that the Community Development Project was started by the Government of India, the Ministry of Rural Development, and that was at that point of time we see that the notion of the community development block as the unit of administration, Gram Panchayats, a few Gram Panchayats together makes a block. And that became the unit of administrative activity in our country. When the planning publicity, when the Planning Commission started taking up different projects in successive 5-year plans, we noted that at the very initial stages, Ford Foundation sponsored a project to underline and to stress on the importance of communication in planned publicity. And also in about 1963, we have also seen that the Government of India formed the Vidyalankar Committee, which after a lot of deliberations gave their project report on how communication can be a catalytic input in any development, and what is the role of communication in development. The poverty scenario in India has been changing within years. And if you see that in 1912, I will not bore you with a lot of statistics, but you need to look into the changing scenario with a few statistics I want to present to see that in 1973-74, we are seeing that almost 54.8% of the Indian population was living under the poverty line. In 1993-94, we are seeing that rate has come down to about 35.9%. In 1999-2000, that rate has come down to 26%, below poverty line figures. And in 1912, that figure comes down to 21.9%. But when we are talking in terms of percentage, we are not getting the real picture. What is that 21.9%? That is 269.3 billion people, almost more than 25 crore people, which is in an aggregate a very large number. The government of India, in successive 5-year plans, before I come into my today's deliberation on the self-help group and the project that the government of India took up to focus on women empowerment and women in particular, very briefly, I would like to state, in the successive 5-year plans, keeping focus on women, children, bonded labor, landless labor, agrarian population, rural India, successively the government of India had taken up different projects to remove and to take away people, take away people from the below poverty line and to upgrade the economic situation of the country. One of the first projects that the government of India took was the legal elimination of bonded labor. At that point of time, in the 50s and the 60s, there was too much of food scarcity. And the government took up the Antodaya Yojana, where the very poor people were given food grains for a period of time. Small farmers' development projects were taken up. Then another very important project that was taken up in the first non-Congress government that came to power in 1977 to 1980, that is the Morarji Desai government, that is the Food for Work program. And again, when the Congress government came back in 1980, Indira Gandhi became the prime minister again after the emergency and the brief rule of a non-Congress government at the center. The very important project that was taken up by the government of India was Integrated Rural Development Program. This program worked for a while, but critics say that this program failed to achieve many of its desired objectives. And it was in the Rural Landless Employment Program that we had a very important, another program that was taken up was TRISEM, that is training rural youth for self-employment. We are aware of the Jawahar Yojgar Yojana. And then it was in 1999 when we were having the golden jubilee of our independence. The government of India took up a very important flagship program, and that is referred to as Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarojgar Yojana. Just as we are celebrating 75 years of India's independence now, it was in 1999, we were celebrating the golden jubilee of India's independence. And it was that point of time that the government of India took up the Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarojgar Yojana. And my focus of today's discussion would be on this particular project that was taken up. And I will tell you why it is very important. It is continuing to play a very important role in poverty alleviation in the country, with particular focus to women. Another very important project, which I will mention and not go into details, is, of course, we are all aware of it, is Manrega, Mahatma Gandhi, 100 days work for the rural population. Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarojgar Yojana started in 1999. What was the aim of this project. The aim of this project was to set up self-help groups, provide microcredit, take the help of NGOs and other government organizations to provide them necessary training, and of course, built up small teams all across the country where people, rather than looking towards the government for employment and income generation, would themselves together make small teams and work for the upliftment, their self-upliftment. And the focus was, of course, here, rural India. This project was continuing, and it was in 2008 that the government of India appointed a committee, which is known as Radhakrishnan Committee, and that committee gave a report, and that report petrified the government. What was the report? There were three types of self-help groups that were operating at that point of time. There were men's self-help group. There were mixed self-help group, that is group in which both men and women were functioning. And of course, there were men and women were functioning. And of course, there were only women self-help groups that were operating. It was to the surprise of the government, it was seen that most of the men's self-help groups, the microcredit that were being given to them by the different financial institutions and by a very nodal agency for this project was National Agriculture Bank for Rural, NABARD. We all know it. NABARD was one of the, and other financial institutions, and of course, nationalized banks which were giving. The nationalized banks reported that most of the men's groups were failing in returning their regular loans that they were taking. They had to repay the loans in small installments. That was not happening at all. And these men's self-help groups were a total failure. In the mixed self-help groups, the situation was also very pathetic in the sense that the women were working, and most of the time it was seen that the men were taking away the money, and the purpose of this augmentation of income for the family was just not happening. But it was, to the surprise of the government, it was seen that the women's self-help groups were working very well. And they were taking the loans, they were creating programs, they were earning money, they were marketing their products on a regular basis, and also on a regular basis, repaying the loan that was given to them, and of course, creating that situation where they would be able to take fresh loans. So on receiving such a report, the government of India decided to do away with men's self-help groups and the mixed self-help groups, and a new name was given to the project from Swarna Jayanti Gram Swarojgar Yojana. This particular project, which was a pan-India very successful project, it was renamed as National Rural Livelihood Mission, NRLM, giving it a different ambit and giving it a different dimension altogether. To achieve, what was the purpose of this particular project? The purpose of this particular project, if I may give you a very formal definition, to achieve sustainable development for rural transformation by setting up micro enterprises and nurture and strengthen the institution of the poor, thereby achieving women empowerment. This was the kind of the definition that we got. me, for a brief while, go to the importance of communication in the entire process of development, because we, all of us, are communication scholars over here. And if we want to understand the important catalytic role that communication plays in this entire project, we need to go back to our theory. Rogers, in 1969, a very important scholar in mass communication, what did he say about communication? He said, until there is communication of ideas from sources external to village, little change of magnitude, little change will occur in peasant knowledge, attitude, and behavior. Communication is therefore central to modernization in such circumstances. UNESCO scholar published a book, Mass Media, Media and National Development, Wilbur Schramm. And what did Wilbur Schramm say? Social change of great magnitude is required. To achieve it, people must be informed, persuaded, educated. Information must flow not only to them, but also from them, and their needs can be known, and so that they may participate in the acts and decisions of nation building. And information must also flow vertically so that decisions may be made, work organized, and skills learned at all levels of society. Here is where mass communication enters the calculus. The required amount of information and learning is so fast that only by making effective use of the great information multipliers, the mass media can developing countries hope to provide information at the rate their tables for the development demands as the development demands are happening. It is in these circumstances that we can talk about. I also would at this stage like to, when we are talking about women empowerment, give you a background and what is the definition of women and empowerment. The term empowerment today is widely used by social scientists, which, however, is subject to different layers of interpretation. Nellie Stromquist defined empowerment as a process to change the distribution of power, both in interpersonal relations and in institutions within society. Very important, both within interpersonal relations and also within institutions of society. Empowerment is a process of social action which enable people to gain greater social justice and control over their immediate living conditions. I'm quoting this particular quote because when we are talking about women, and especially rural women who are poor, they do not have control over their immediate social and living conditions. And that is what we are aiming to change. They stress on the fact that interaction between gender and social cohesion must be closely scrutinized while studying the concept of empowerment. And if we give a very mundane and a layman's definition of empowerment, we can talk about empowerment as largely a personal process in which individuals develop and employ necessary knowledge, competence, and confidence for taking their own decisions and voices heard. This is very, very important. When we are talking about, very briefly, I will go into what is microcredit and what is a self-help group. If we try to understand the emergence of microcredit and self-help group, the movement A self-help group very typically represents a voluntary association where a small number of poor persons, 20 or less, or they are originating from the same socio-economic background, they join hands to promote free savings and acquire collateral-free loans. Loan repayment thus becomes a joint responsibility of the group, which is triggered by peer pressure. We all know about the Nobel Prize winning Bangladeshi economist Mohammad Yunus, whose Grameen Bank was a kind of a pioneer which showcased the power of microcredit and power of groups led by women. However, we have seen that detractors consider microfinance as, there have been criticism of this also, and detractors have considered microfinance as poverty lending and such welfare approaches and subsidies having little to offer poor people except the perpetuation of their dependency status. Try to understand this, that there have been criticism of it, and I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, yes.
Yes, there was a power cut of some sort of. And microcredit has been considered as a kind of poverty lending for some. In India, microcredit has been the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development has been one of the pioneers in the system of microcredit in our country. At this point of time, I would like to go back on how what has been considered what has been the basic problems that have been faced by the self-help groups in their formation. Social mobilization is the central element of the SGSY and the NRLM scheme. Most of the time we have seen that social mobilization at grade 1 is extremely important. The process requires formation of self-help groups among individuals, bringing together individual savings and thrift under a common pool, building their capacity for handling money, and managing income-generating projects, helping the selection of key activities, planning of activity clusters, providing infrastructure, technology, and market support, and others. What is the difficulty here? The difficulty over here is that the poor cannot organize themselves and need hand-holding support for building up their capacities. A team of dedicated professionals to man and build capacity for internal leadership for self-management is necessary, but not adequately present in most of the states. What has been one of the primary difficulties for self-help groups is that they require, since they are poor, they're backward, they're not so educated, they are not conversant with financial matters, they cannot make projects, and therefore hand-holding support becomes necessary. And SHGs, most of the time, the difficulty is that SHGs act without direction and coordination. High mortality rate among SHGs is prevalent, consequent failure of micro enterprises themselves. So what is very important over here, since most of the time they don't get hand-holding support, we see that premature death of SHGs and premature failure of many micro enterprises. The second most important difficulties being faced by self-help groups in our country is training. Strengthening of livelihoods require technical skills for SHGs. Evidence have suggested that in terms of the extent of coverage and quality of training, much needs to be done. That is very, very important. There is lack in our country of coordinating agencies, both at the district and the state level, inadequate training of infrastructure, and absence of proper professional staff, especially at the district level, keeping in view the escalating number of SHGs. This is very important, that the number of SHGs over the years in our country has become quite a political tool for many state governments, is to encourage the proliferation of SHGs. But at the same time, since these SHGs and poor women require a lot of support from both from the government's end and from the end of the non-government organizations and other organizations, it becomes very, very important that they get the hand-holding support. So lack of coordinating agencies, both at the district level and at other level, and also what we are seeing that there are lack of committed NGOs. NGOs are playing a very critical role in the entire SHG movement. A lack of committed NGOs. There are a number of NGOs that have sprung up everywhere, but those committed NGOs which are interested in hand-holding, the numbers are very less. For this, what is the problem? Large number of either untrained or poorly trained SHGs who ultimately could not continue in the SGSY programs are there. Training functionaries of the delivery system, this is also very, very important, that we need to train a broad range of stakeholders, including various levels of functionaries in banks, government departments, and NGOs. Result, there is lack of trained personnel. High attrition rate, especially in the banks, often result in training provided go waste. This is very, very important also. Well, I'll try to explain in a nutshell. Most of the time, the rural branches of banks, we are seeing today there's a lot of automation, and also in the rural areas, the banks are often functioning with one branch manager and two clerks and one peon. And many of these bank managers do not feel that NGOs is good, SHGs and lending microfinance is good business for them. This is just an extra work with a lot of trouble. And there is also what is very important over here, that many of these bank managers, as we have all experienced in cities also, are there in one branch for 2 to 3 years. Just when they are developing a kind of relationship, with the local self-help groups, and exchanging ideas, providing money, etc., it's time for them to leave the branch and go to another branch. And then comes a new manager from another locale who is not quite familiar with the socioeconomic and other factors that guide the particular place. And then something that has to be started anew. This is a very genuine problem. And there are lack of banking facilities in rural areas, uninterrupted flow of credit from financial institutions to SHGs is necessary for the latter to gain criticality. This is also very, very important. And what are, for these banking institutions, we are seeing many of the banks in the rural areas are with skeleton staff, and many of them who get routinely transferred, as I told you. Many such staff working in these branches are not motivated to serve the poor and the marginalized. Many consider posting in rural areas as punishment posting, and many consider giving credit to SHGs as bad investment. So there is a question of psyche also. And as a result, all these factors make SHG bank linkage and credit transfer to SHG slow and problematic. This becomes very, very important. Next, if you focus on the SHGs themselves, since they are small business units, what is very important is they also lack, the SHGs themselves lack what? Managerial, financial, and marketing skills. That is also very, very important. The ultimate aim of forming a SHG is profit making through business and augmenting the income of its members. SWOT analysis of this venture before we start it is very, very essential. Many of the SHGs fail to success because they don't have the following. What they don't have is that inappropriate location of sale and no proper visibility of the product. We have seen there is absence of any kind of branding, like we get branding like AgMark, trademark, certification of any kind of their products. Products are not available around the year. They lack balance between, there is also a balance between demand and supply. If somebody gets attracted to a particular, just like I'm telling you, a jam or a kind of achar which these self-help groups are making, you go the next time and you ask for it and you don't get it. And so there is no continuity in supply. Lack of knowledge of the market. No attractive and suitable package for a package for SHG product. There is no sales promotion, and at times there are middlemen. I will explain this to you. I had gone to Bankura for developing for shooting a documentary on Dokra. You know, Dokra is a art of creating models from metals, and they are done by a particular tribal group which had once migrated from Madhya Pradesh to our part of the country in Bankura, Mednipur area. Wonderful products they are making, but most of the time, these people, they don't know how to market the products. And then what did I see? That very rich entrepreneurs, they are coming down and they are exporting it to Western countries, many of these products. But if they are giving them 400 rupees, that same product is being sold abroad at 4,000 rupees. And these people do not know. The government of West Bengal has, over time, created some facilities for them. All the above reasons which I mentioned together or individually result in the failure of SHGs. Now I have thus mentioned, may I get back to some of my friends? I have not heard from them at all. Are you finding the class interesting? Do you have any questions?
So we have requested our participants to question towards the end. So as you finish,
okay. That's good. And if we look into the entire scenario of this, if we form a very important area which I would like to mention over here is that we have been in our class, I think in the previous classes, we have talked about the Millennium Development Goals and how has the Millennium Development Goals that have been set up by the United Nations being linked to the SGSY program and the National Rural, this NRLM program. The Millennium Development Goals, if I may recollect, are as follows. Eradicate extreme poverty and hunger, achieve universal primary education, promote gender equality and empower women, reduce child mortality, improve maternal health, control HIV, AIDS, malaria, and other diseases, ensure environmental sustainability, and develop a global partnership for development The SGSY scheme of the Government of India also has as its goals the eradication of extreme poverty and hunger, as BPL category families are the primary focus of these schemes. Moreover, the scheme, by promoting economic development of women, ensures gender equality and empowers women. It also provides a solid base for developing a global partnership for development by teaming up with multilateral agencies like the World Bank, the ADB, and the UNDP, UNICEF, UNESCO, etc. The SHGs under SGSY are also directly engaged in working for improvement of maternal health and reducing child mortality and creating awareness about HIV, AIDS, malaria, and other diseases. Many of these SHGs are actually working, as you know, the Asha Didis and the Anganwadis. And these Anganwadis are working for expecting mothers, for children, by providing nutrition, etc. I had the opportunity of developing one of these SHGs, which are working with the self-help groups, which are working with the Anganwadi workers. And on that fine day, I was very surprised that many women were engaged in preparing a particular kind of sweet. So I asked, what is this? They said that we have been asked by the government of West Bengal to provide these, what they have referred to as Paushtik Laddus. It had a number of grains, it had milk, it had some added vitamins, etc. And these laddus were being provided to expecting mothers and lactating mothers who are providing breast milk to the children. And for the entire period of pregnancy, these laddus were being provided free of charge by the government through the Asha Didis and these Anganwadi workers. And these were being made by the self-help group women. That was very interesting, that the SHGs under SGSY are also directly engaged in working for improvement of maternal health and reducing child mortality and creating awareness about HIV and AIDS. Therefore, if properly implemented, the SGSY scheme, therefore, can play a very, very important role in the achievement, a proper achievement of the Universal Millennium Development Goals. Now, what are the different stages of formation of this group? FAO, one of the United Nations agencies, have warned each stakeholder group may have its own agenda, mandate, and responsibilities. What is the challenge? The challenge is to identify and agree upon actions suitable for all parties. In this context, when we are talking about the communication strategy for development, which has been identified, what we can do is that identifying the phases and steps in communication planning and development, conducting situational analysis and participatory communication appraisal in the field, developing a workable communication strategy and plan of action, facilitating multi-stakeholder dialogue, and collaborating in successful implementation of ComDev activities, designing, pre-testing, producing, and using multimedia ComDev material, and assessing the initiatives. Now, if we look at the SHG, a brief history of the SHG movement in India, we see that South and Southeast Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean during the 1970s and the 80s saw the poor, especially women, they come together to form small groups who cultivated weekly savings and giving loans to themselves. During the 1980s, we are seeing that Several NGOs like Cooperative for Relief and Assistance Everywhere Care, then Credit Savings and Household Enterprises Cash, Share, Dhan Foundation, they helped in social mobilization and organization of rural poor. International donor organizations like UNDP, ActionAid, Oxfam also supported informal community groups and community organizations in programs of poverty lending. Chit funds in southern India, Mahila Mandals in Maharashtra, Assam, and Uttar Pradesh were other forms of social mobilization. We have also seen that in 1992, the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, along with NGO Maryada, they launched a pilot project, SGH Bank Linkage Program in Udaipur, and which formalized the functioning of the microfinance institutions in India. 20 years have passed since then, and the SHG movement has acquired a very formidable size in our country today. The Swarnajanti Gram Swarojgar Yojana, which started in 1999, which was rechristened as National Rural Livelihood Mission in 2011, has helped to provide momentum to the SHG movement by providing subsidy and arranging credit to the Swarojgaris. Apart from NABARD and SIDBI, we have another very important organization, the Rashtriya Mahila Kosh, National Minorities Development and Finance Corporation, Backward Classes Development and Finance Corporations are also offering a host of financial services for promotional institutions. Now, very briefly, I think it is important that I tell you what are the primary stakeholders in the NRLM scheme and how communication can play a very important and catalytic role in forging a binding relationship between these different stakeholders to achieve the desired goal. The number one in the list is, of course, the government. The administrative and controlling departments and officers relating to SGSY groups in the government of West Bengal. And what is the level? Government of India level, it is under the Ministry of MORD, Ministry of Rural Development. At the state level, in our state of West Bengal, the nodal agency is, of course, Department of Panchayat and Rural Development. It is headed by a concerned minister of charge and the principal secretary. Then you have the Directorate of Panchayat and Rural Development, headed by the Director of Panchayat. At the district level, this is very, very important because everything is happening in the districts. It is the DRDC, that is District Rural Development Cell, headed by the project director. Then at the block level, this is very important. Every block of the country, in the country, there is a block development officer, and under whom works the woman development officer, WDO. This woman development officer is the key officer in the block, who is actually coordinating with the SHG. And at the Gram Panchayat level, you have the GP office, where you have the Gram Pradhan and the executive assistant in the Gram Panchayat, who is in charge of the SGSY. The second most important stakeholder in the SGSY scheme is the self-help group themselves. At the top level, you have the cluster. At the federation, then you have the cluster, sub-cluster, and absolutely at the below, we have the self-help group themselves. In the banking, the third most important stakeholder in this particular project is the banking sector. The banking sector, you have the nationalized banks, you have the regional rural banks, you have the cooperative banks, you have the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, you have the SIDBI, Rashtriya Mahila Kosh, Minorities and SC/ST Development and Finance Corporations. So you have the government at the center, at the state and the district level, down to the panchayat level. Then you have the NGOs, the SHGs themselves, who are working in federations, clusters, sub-clusters, and down below towards the self-help group. And then you have the banking and financial institutions operating from the nationalized banks to absolutely down below the regional rural banks and very specialized organizations like NABARD. And at last, you have the non-government organizations at the local, regional, national, and international level who are paying a hand-holding support. This is very, very important. At this stage, let us look back for what are the kind of when we talked about how we are integrating the different schemes of the government with the self-help group movement under the NRLM scheme, and providing different kinds of services and products, and helping in the Millennium Development Goal achievement, we will see that I will very briefly tell you that the self-help group, women's self-help groups, how they are linked to different programs of the government. We know the very important project of the government, the Swachh Bharat mission. Self-help groups are associated with it. We know the ICDS, Anganwadi, mother and child care, and universal immunization product. The self-help groups are very closely linked with the government's midday meal scheme in schools. The self-help groups are associated in West Bengal very closely with the hospital diet supplies to block primary health centers and the district hospitals. We are aware of the government's Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. In this mission, the self-help groups are providing the school uniforms and the school bags, which are being provided by the government of West Bengal free of charge to students till the class 12 today. Then we have a very, very important project, National Rural Health Mission. Under the National Rural Health Mission, I went to one of these, another self-help groups. Very interesting what I saw, that the government has urged these self-help groups for to provide sanitary napkin supplies at very cheap rates, 25 paisa to 50 paisa. And the government has set up vending machines in different places. You know, this is a very, very important area, and many kinds of other diseases can be prevented if we can provide cheap sanitary napkins to women during their need. And this important project has been taken up by the government, and self-help group women were making from material they have sourced from this. I went to Shantipur. You know, Shantipur is a textile hub in West Bengal, where for generations before independence, these tatis were actually from Faridpur area of Bangladesh that migrated to Nodia in Shantipur, in Fulia, etc., in that particular region. And in that particular region, textiles and different materials of cotton are available in cheap rates. And there, the self-help groups have been appointed by the government to make sanitary napkins and provide sanitary napkins at very cheap rates to women. Then, very important, running canteens in government offices and various other training centers. And many of these federations of self-help groups are also providing very important support to the National Literacy Mission. And very interestingly, another very important program in which the self-help groups are associated with is providing legal aid to women. This is another very, very important and interesting area where self-help groups are associated with. So in this particular, when we go back to the different theories of mass communication at the very initial stages where we talked about the diffusion models. From the diffusion models, we came to the modernization theory. From there, we little by little, there was a lot of criticism of it, and we came to the participatory development process. And in the participatory development process, when we were seeing that communication is playing a very, very important role in the entire exercise. And here, very, very importantly, we will see that largely the self-help group movement has been very successful in our country. Women empowerment, as we see, the emergence of microcredit and self-help groups have played an important role, and communication is playing a very important and catalytic role over here. The 7 decades we have seen of development experience around the globe has highlighted the role of communication as a critical input in the process of development. Communication for development and social change, as we have seen that it is the prospective group members, how it is helping. Communication is playing an exceedingly important role in the formation, growth, sustenance, and success of self-help groups. It is a catalytic agent which is helping members forge a relationship whereby prospective group members are, they can identify similarities from social and economic and standpoint, and experiences their goals, and they form the group on building mutual trust. After here, interpersonal communication and group communication is playing an important role. Upon building mutual trust and developing a common ground, they form a group which acquires an identity on completion of requisite formalities. Group and interpersonal communication here play an important role in the day-to-day management of the SHGs, which is both vertical and horizontal in nature. Amongst, in every group has got a president and a secretary. And then there are normal members of the group. And so here, both horizontal communication and vertical communication is playing an important role. We often refer to in our discourses about development support communication is a key input, and it is designed and implemented by different stakeholders, which include the government machinery, financial institutions, and non-government organizations, which help the SHGs formulate business strategy, which lead to developing and marketing of the product or the service. Public relations and advertising as communication tools play an important role in this regard. Information and communication technology today, intervention, ICT intervention, help in forging a closer relationship between the SHGs, the financial institutions, and the market. This is very, very important. Why I'm saying this is important? Because today the government has decided to, in most of the schemes, direct money transfer to the beneficiary. And the government is talking about e-passbooks. The e-passbooks, they are automatically updated. When you have e-passbooks, the government, the financial institutions can also, what they can do is that from the databases, they can very easily find out which self-help groups are performing well, who are taking the loans, returning the loans on time, and again taking loans and developing their market base and their services and their products, and which self-help groups are actually not working. But e-passbooks, you know, are often, as we have seen, the elderly people in our own homes often could not manage Android phones. And self-help groups are being run by poor, often the average education rate is often class 5 and class 8 in many of these. So a proper training was necessary. And the government, what they decided is that they appointed what? Banking correspondents and bank mitras. Very important. There is a banking institution, there is a self-help group. As I told you before, in the banking institutions, the bank managers, there is high attrition rate. They are going away after 2 years, and then again a new manager is coming. What the government decided is that appoint bank mitras. These bank mitras will actually work as conduits between the self-help group, and he will be appointed from amongst the same social milieu, but he will be a bit class 12 graduate, class till somebody who has studied till class 12, somebody who is a bit adept and skillful in using technology and ICT, help them to maintain the e-passbooks, update the e-passbooks, and help them with formulating the project and having that conversation with the bank, enabling them to get the loan. So the intervention, ICT intervention today is very, very becoming important. I went to Kerala for one of these projects, and there I saw in the blocks, the government have set up units where you have solar powered units where you don't need, so that you have internet round the clock. There is solar power. Through solar power, they are having internet round the clock in that particular service center, and where our self-help group women are actually growing. And often when we talk about self-help groups and their kind of functioning that they are doing, we talk about, in Bangla, if I say Murgi Palon and Chagol Palon, ba, these sort of things. No, the entire Kochi Metro Railway, the entire service of the Kochi Metro Railway is being done by self-help groups today. There is a lot of change in the kind of work that they are doing. And last but not the least, interpersonal communication plays a vital role during the phase where an SHG has to negotiate with the financial institution to get loans and approval for their business ventures. NGOs motivate, run, and provide hand-holding support to the SHGs, where communication is a key input. Communication thus plays a major role in group development and dynamics, including participation, leadership, conflict resolution, problem solving, cooperation, mutual aid, and decision making. So this is very, very important. I would like to stop here and kind of try to get feedback from you so that I can understand that how my students have taken this up till now.
Thank you so much, sir.
And if there's any questioning.
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm sure there would be people being inquisitive to hear about. So I should say it was a massive research project, deliberated with very careful attention to nuances. It was overwhelming for people like me to hear. And I should say that it was intrinsic intellectual articulation. And sir, allow me to open the floor for further questioning with my inquisitiveness. So let me address my curiosity. Sir, when you were talking about empowerment as such, so I was hearing to words like competitiveness, voices being heard of the women, and the confidence as such. So, and in another conversation, you also told that the male help group didn't work because they were getting drunk and the money that was circulated was not reaching the purpose. And we all know that the marginalized community women are subjected to patriarchal domestic violence and things like this.
Yes.
Does the government have efficient crisis management team or psychiatry team who addresses and empower the women on this also? Because I understand you concentrated in a lot of places on gender equality and all these things. How does this work? Because I think it's a very integral part of, equipping the women to take best help out of this self-help project as such.
What I saw is that whenever actually, when you are empowering a woman within the household, you are actually helping the entire family, if you consider family as a unit, and then from that you are helping the society as a whole. And when we're talking about financial empowerment, when money was rolling and whatever, see, we will not go about the amount, because since we understand that we are talking in terms of $1, $2 per day. These kind of talk we are talking about. Here, if that is increased 2 times or 3 times, and the money is directly now under the control of a lady, that changed the situation a lot. And this money which they were earning was actually being used to I have seen myself where that money is being used by a mother to provide a tuition class for a girl child. That is very, very important. That money is being used for the good of the family itself. And therefore, and another thing is that if I can, I was not going into statistics, but if I have later, on a later, may I ask that if there is any scope to upload some things in this group, will this group remain, or you'll disband the group?
Yes, sir. We are effectively uploading other informations related to the sessions.
Yeah.
I will ask the concerned person to get in touch with you for.
I would love to upload certain materials, especially with focus to the government of West Bengal, where the self-help group movement has taken quite a rage. And today we have hundreds and thousands of self-help groups which are operating at the grassroots level. And this mobilization of women together has provided them, this hand-holding has provided them a kind of, as you just mentioned that particular phrase, voice within the society, where they together, we have seen women together going into what we call country liquor shops and breaking them, going inside to the local police stations and asking the police stations to do away with this illegal country liquor, which is taking away all the money from their men, which they were earning. And this definitely has a kind of a catapulted kind of a social dynamics, which is reaching to the grassroots, and from the grassroots, it is even percolating upwards. It is both vertical and horizontal.
That's really
Dr. Chandu, I have a question, Madam.
Yes,
Madam, if you
yes,
allow
sir,
me,
yes, please go ahead.
I have a question. Yes, Dr. Chandu, just I want to know that in developmental journalism, there is one little bit dichotomy of embedded reporting, because sometimes the government is saying that this they are doing and that is being, but who are the beneficiaries? They are saying some other information. If it is there, so how we could judge that this is proper, or this is this has to be written, that has to be focused? So how it could?
This is a corruption is an old story in most of the third world countries, and it was as early as the 1990s that Rajiv Gandhi, our Prime Minister, late Prime Minister, has said that when I was sending 1 rupee from Delhi, the recipient was getting 12 paise. And one of the very landmark decisions that was taken by the government and that was implemented was to decentralize this, the entire process, because that is very, very important, and top-down approach to from the down to the top, both vertical and horizontal. We implemented through this. By amending our constitution, we implemented the 3-stage Panchayati Raj program. The district Panchayat Samiti and the Panchayat Raj. That was important. As I told you, for this particular program, you will see that the government is appointed from the Ministry of Rural Development to the state government, Panchayat and Rural Development, to the district DRDC, to the block, you have the BDO, under whom we have a special officer appointed, woman development officer, and in the Gram Panchayat, you have a particular Gram Panchayat member who is in charge of this women's self-help SGSY scheme. You have, as monitoring agencies, you have a lot of NGOs who are working and hand-holding with the government. You have the federations and the clusters of the self-help groups themselves, which are quite powerful. But at the same time, like every government scheme, there are pilferages. And therefore, just I mentioned that when this particular scheme was started in 1999, and there was a midterm appraisal of this scheme in 2008. We saw that everything was not well. And therefore, the decision was taken to appoint women. For this kind of scheme, I will tell you, there is a lot of motivation. Women are coming together. They are understanding the importance of hand-holding, doing something themselves and earning, and how they are plowing back the money that they have earned back to. There are, for other schemes, there can be problems. But since in this particular scheme, the banks are also involved, you know, the banking institutions are involved in giving the money, and before granting the microcredit, they are vetting their proposals. And the microcredit is also being given in installments, where after a particular stage, they have to return the money back. If they don't, the credit is stopped. And the amount is not that big that it will cause a major financial ruckus for the government. So I felt that, although at a very, one thing is very important. I would remind you, I forgot to tell about it. When the scheme was devised, that when it will start, when a self-help group will start operating, the scheme, it is a pious hope that a stage would be reached that they would be able to dissolve this self-help group after 10 years. That is, women who are members of the self-help group would reach that stage of development where it won't be necessary for them to continue as members of a self-help group. Individually, they or their families would be financially empowered to work upon themselves. That much.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Do we have any further questions from the floor? I take it as no. So, sir, I am indebted.
It's quite late night. It's past 9, and
I believe everyone is mesmerized with a huge sort of, content deliberation for your lecture. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking our time. Over to you, Sitara. I just couldn't stop and resist myself.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, of course, I do understand that. So I take this opportunity to thank you for this precious time, and I definitely have to mention the efforts you took to concise this massive project into this, short hour to give us a small understanding. I'm sure we have been oriented towards understanding how these projects are working. So thank you so much for the great initiative, sir. It's a great effort that you took to make us understand. And on that note, we come to the end of today's session.
Thank you, Dr. Chanda. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sneha.
Thank you so much.
So
Thank
we come
you
to
very
the end of the last virtual session.